It's time for the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. The podcast you look forward to for all of your news and reviews of the best comic books hitting stands. Whether it's DC,
Batman, Wonder Woman,
Marvel,
Spider-Man,
Image,
Spawn, Saga,
Boom,
Once and Future, Power Rangers,
or whatever book or publisher you follow,
we cover them all here.
this is the place for you.
That's right, it's for everyone.
This is the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast.
Let's get it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. I am your host, Theo. Sorry for the hiatus, as you may have seen on some of my socials. Had to take some time away, actually for this fella right here that's currently sitting in my lap. This here, for those of you who may not know, but who will probably know if you have seen him a time or two on the Batman Universe comic podcast. This here is Thanos, and he's my 8-year-old that I'm kind of letting get away with bloody murder right now. But yeah, Thanos is nearing the end of his life and end of his time with me. He is dying of cancer. So yeah, I've been taking some time to make sure that he's comfortable in these final days of his, and just kind of been focusing on him since the diagnosis came through. So yeah, this is my buddy. He's been with me for the past 8 years, and going to enjoy some time with him while I can. But I wanted to get this episode out simply because the interview that I had was a while back, and so some of this is still kind of dated, but I still wanted to put it out there because there is some information with regards to projects that will be coming in the future as well, and that is with my good friend and regular Comic Bin host, regular Comic Bin guest, Joe Illidge. He comes and he sits with me to talk about the Bloodletter paperback, trade paperback that is currently on shelves from Image Comics. That's the story that he and Tim Seeley did. It's now in collected form. We also talk a little bit about Noir's New Black. The final issue of the second season has been funded on Kickstarter. So for those of you who backed it, such as I did, thank you so much. I'm very happy to know that we'll be getting that final issue. Again, when this recording happened, it was before the campaign ended, so you'll hear us talk about, making it come to life, but just know that it is, and you could probably still find a way to get it online, either at Fair Square Graphics website, or you maybe even to check on Kickstarter. Some campaigns are allowed to still take in pledges after they've been successfully funded and the campaign comes to an end. So check that out as well. But we talk a little bit about Bloodletter, we talk a little bit about Noir's New Black, and then we talk about some of the other projects that he's going to be working on over the coming years. He has a pretty busy plate on him, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But after that, we'll be talking about my favorite issues for this past new comic book day, which is July the 8th, 2026. There were some good books. Now, we'll give you a hint. Most of them are from DC Comics. So, yeah, just be prepared for that. Yeah, we'll go to my favorite books for the week and talk about what's going to be happening on the next episode or two. As you can kind of see, I am getting myself into the brunt of con season. I'll be heading to New Orleans this weekend. I'm actually going to be spending time with my granddaughter, and we'll be heading over to GalaxyCon New Orleans. I'll be covering that event, but I'll be bringing her with me as well. It's her first time in a while that she has come with her grandfather to a convention, so she's going to be hanging out with me, and she may even make a surprise entrance appearance on the show as I do one of my daily recaps. But yeah, I'm going to spend some time with her. Going to be covering GalaxyCon New Orleans. It's their second year in the city. Hoping it's even bigger and better than it was last year. I think last year may have been a trial run. Just looking at the guest list for this year compared to last, it is absolutely crazy with the some of the names that are on the list for GalaxyCon New Orleans, especially so close to San Diego Comic-Con. And then, I'll be heading to San Diego as well to cover that event over the 4 days from Thursday through Sunday. But until then, here is my interview with comic book writer, editor, comic book extraordinaire, Joe Illidge, talking about Bloodletter, Noir the New Black, and some of his other projects. Then, like I say, we'll get back and we'll talk about my favorite books for this week. And until then, I will hope you all enjoy the interview. Again, it is a little dated. Some of the stuff is probably known already. The Kickstarter campaign is over, but I still hope you enjoy it. I always enjoy my time talking to Joe, but I will see you all on the other side. So I always jump at a chance to talk to this guy in the screen panel next to me whenever he has time to come on. Welcome back to the show, Joe Illidge. How are you, my friend?
Pretty good, Theo. How are you today?
I am doing well. Not as busy as you, because you are quite a busy person, and I love that for you, man. Because every time I'm looking around, I'm seeing the video post, I'm seeing the interview post, and the thing that I love most about them is that despite all these interviews and the topics are pretty much the same, the questions are different, and there's a whole lot of stuff that I'm learning. So thank you for taking the time to come back. And
you're welcome. I always enjoy being here.
Yeah, and first of all, now I can't, I'd be remiss if I did not congratulate not only you but the rest of the team over at Fair Square Graphics on the nomination for Best Anthology for Noir the New Black Season 2. All 3 episodes. The campaign for season 3 is ongoing right now. It's the first day as of this recording. I am officially a day one backer, as I have been on all of the issues, including the first volume, which was the trade paperback version. So I'm proud to say I have backed that campaign each and every time it has come alive over on Kickstarter. And I'll definitely have a link in the show notes for you all to get out there and support it yourself. We want to make sure that we not only bring it to life, but we also want to get those stretch goals as well. Make sure that the folks at Fair Square, make the money that's needed to get that project off the ground.
Thank you so much. And it's really, listen, it's an honor. It's a thrill. It's great when you get the news that the book that you've worked on has been nominated for an Eisner. So being part of the team, that's myself and Chris Cross on the serialized story, The Winterfields, which takes place in 1927 Harlem. And then Greg Burnham and Quinn McGowan, who are the team on The Little Rock Files, which takes place in the 80s in Little Rock, Arkansas. And, the publisher Fair Square Graphics, owned by Fabrice Sapolsky and Crystal Adams and Ethan Sapolsky. So it's really just great because this is really, in a way, like an underdog story. Fair Square Graphics is a publisher that's been around, I think, for 6 years now. And the co-owner, Fabrice Sapolsky, is a veteran in the industry. And so he decided to make a company that would publish creative visions that wouldn't usually find a home elsewhere, but Fair Square Graphics wanted to be that home, and it's dedicated to publishing stories in which creators get to own their intellectual properties 100%. And so with everything that the comic book industry has gone through in the last 2 years, Fair Square Graphics emerging from that and getting this nomination for Best Anthology for the Eisner Awards. That's just really an amazing story. And I was an Eisner Award presenter 2 years ago, and I co-presented myself and Eric Powell, creator of The Goon, presented the award for Best Anthology to Chris Robinson for the All Negro Comics hardcover edition that he brought together and edited. So the idea of being in a book that is now nominated in the same category is just, it's great.
Yeah, again, Fabrice has been on the show a few times. I've met him every time, he has come to New Orleans for Fan Expo, and we always have a good conversation. And, the last time he was on, we had a real deep conversation about where things were with Fair Square, especially after the debacle with Diamond and everything that happened with Diamond and what it caused, to the industry, and how small publishers like Fair Square Graphics were really impacted, and how it was really a struggle. So, despite that, the fact that, the folks over at the Eisners recognized just how wonderful of a story Noir the New Black is, it's just, it's a just reward, for the struggle that he and Crystal have been going through over the last few years, especially after the downfall of Diamond. So again, congrats not only to him and Crystal, but to the rest of the creative team. I talk to Greg a lot of times, especially when he comes back to Louisiana. He's a Louisiana boy. So whenever he's in town, I try to talk to him. But yeah, congratulations to all of you for the great work that you all have done with season 2. And so, since we're talking about Noir is the New Black, let's talk about the Winterfields, because as episode 2 ended, we saw that Delilah was not in a good place, as Gomez has finally caught up to them. So what can we expect moving into episode 3 now that the campaign is live on Kickstarter? And of course, we don't want to spoil it, but how much bang are we going to get to close this story out?
So I really think about the story the same way I would think about crime novels. So this is a 48-page story that's broken up into 3 installments. So I believe the first chapter was 14 pages in issue 1, the second chapter 16 pages in issue 2, and then the third chapter, which will be in the season finale issue, which, as you said, the Kickstarter campaign has launched, that's going to be 18 pages. So it is going to be the longest installment for the climax of this entire story. And as you said, it revolves around Delilah Wood, and she's a 16-year-old girl. Now, this story takes place in 1927 in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance. So what happened was, in 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre happened, and the town of Tulsa, which was an economically independent Black entrepreneurial community, was burned down, destroyed, and the Wood family lost their home, but they survived. So they moved to Harlem, New York, and started a new life. And the father was an accountant and a bookkeeper, and the mother was a seamstress, and she taught Delilah how to sew, because we're talking about 1927, right? So that was a possible career track that Delilah's mother thought was feasible. Obviously, society has evolved considerably since then, but again, we're talking 1927. And so what happened was, one day Delilah comes home, she finds her parents dead in the living room, and she runs. And she runs to the only person she can go to, who is her godfather. And her godfather is the legendary W.E.B. Du Bois. And so he hires the Winterfields, who are Kane Winterfield, a World War I veteran, and his 12-year-old son, Carver, who are bodyguards. So Du Bois hires them to protect his goddaughter, find out who's trying to kill her, and stop them decisively, right? And so that's where this whole story started in chapter 1. And in chapter 2, the Winterfields have been trying to figure out ways to hide Delilah, get her out of town under a false identity and a new set of papers. But the person who killed her parents managed to catch up to them. And so it's a chase issue. It's a chase issue, and it has all these flashbacks showing the preparations that Kane and Carver are trying to take. And so the third issue is the climax, and it's going to really be, it's going to be all out battle. It's going to be all out battle, and there's going to be a resolution for Delilah. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be kind. Oof. But you'll have to read the story to see it, you know. Oof. And it was really important to have a young Black girl at the center of the story, because with the Winterfields, you're talking about two men at different ages, and, you know, you really don't want the story to be like a testosterone fest, right? And so it really made sense to have this main character. The reason she's 16 years old is because she's 4 years older than Carver Winterfield, right? And she's too old for them to have a romantic relationship, but not too old for them to develop a platonic bond. So just as Delilah Wood is at the center of this story, what's also at the center of this story is the humanity of the young people, is someone getting through the exterior of 12-year-old Carver Winterfield, who lives a brutal life, can kill a man twice his size and twice his mass, but does not have a normal life, going to school, hanging out in playgrounds, and just being a kid. And so his social development is, you know, it's warped, it's different. And so this is an opportunity to show someone get to the humanity of him, and how meeting Carver and her father affects Delilah, right? So it's that kind of a thing. Like, how do these characters affect one another by coming into each other's orbit, right? How is it when a 16-year-old girl who's running away from violence, whose family survived violence, tried to escape violence, and then got confronted by violence, how is it when she has to be protected by people for whom violence is an integral part of their daily lives, and they are always on alert? What is the collision of those characters like?
Yeah, when I look at Kane and Carver's relationship, I sometimes see a Bruce and Damian Wayne type of parallel, you know, with how Damian was raised as a kid, and how he's just now, if you're reading the stories in Batman, he's just now starting to break out of that shell, because he has had these platonic relationships from the rest of the family that has shown him, you know, yeah, we understand how you've been raised, and, you know, been raised in violence, but they've been able to show him a world that's different, and I see that especially with how Delilah and Carver, you know, go back and forth. I sometimes see it as how Damian and Stephanie kind of had their relationship, their platonic relationship, going through Batgirl's run several years ago. But let me ask you this question. So the back set, the story is based out of the events of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Yes.
And we've seen a lot of stories that come out of that. I mean, something as big as The Watchmen utilized, you know, from the HBO series, utilized the backdrop of the Tulsa Massacre. Why was it important for you to include it in the story of the Winterfields?
Really, for a number of reasons. It was important to include in the story because, number one, with the Winterfields, Chris and I have this amazing opportunity to explore Black history because these characters are literally walking through Black history. And I feel like history is more important than ever. Actual history, reading about history, finding ways to incorporate history into the fiction. So that's one. And when you're talking about the Harlem Renaissance is Black history, it's American history, it's music history, art history, literature history, philosophy history, sociology history, right? And so events like that are important juncture points. When you talk about the Tulsa Race Massacre, what that did to an entire community, how that would echo throughout the 20th century. And one of the things that happens is we don't talk a lot about collateral damage. We talk about events as these juncture points, these spikes in history, but there are a lot of human beings who are the collateral damage of these events. And so being able to start a story and immediately pull you into the Wood family, and then by the end of the first page, make it a family of one. What that does is that immediately draws the reader into the story. And listen, we are at a time in which there are so many stories. Due to technology, attention span has significantly reduced. And so as storytellers, it behooves us to engage the reader as soon as possible. And, you know, from my point of view as an editor, as a writer, as a servant and practitioner of story, as an intellectual property coach, pulling you into the story means giving you a character to care about. So by the end of page one, Delilah Wood is that person, right? And you know that ultimately this is her journey. And so that's why it was important to start with something like the Tulsa Race Massacre. Number one, to explore the people who are collateral damage. And number two, to use that as a means by which to give you the character to care about.
Yeah, and yeah, there is definitely still collateral damage from that massacre that is still in the news today as you know, family members and actual survivors of the massacre, you know, try to get compensation and reparation for what they've gone through. And
absolutely,
so it's definitely something that still has an impact today. So as a history major, I thank you. You know, whenever there is something like that pops up, it always grabs my attention as a student and former teacher of history. So thanks to you and Chris Cross for both bringing that to life.
You're welcome.
But since we can't talk too much about spoilers, and again, the campaign is live for season 2, episode 3. It is almost at its funding goal, but we want to make sure it gets over that funding goal because I want some of those stretch goals. I need some of those stretch prizes. So again, when you see the link in the show notes, make sure you click it and back it up. It is going on through the first part of July, so we want to make sure that we bring it to light and make sure that we get those stretch goals as well. But let's talk about something that we can talk some spoilers, and that is Bloodletter. So yes. We now have Bloodletter. It is out and available in trade paperback form. And you and I haven't been able to talk about it since the first issue because we didn't want to spoil the story. And we were talking about issue number 1. But now we can talk about the whole thing. And I guess my first question for Bloodletter, did Al humble Tasha? I mean, when everything was said and done, and the back and forth and the battle between those two at the end, did Al kind of humble her, especially with that sequence where she thought she did it. She thought she met the goal of killing the man who tried to kill her, and he's like, "You really think you got it all? He's like, I'm not the man you have a vendetta against." Did he kind of humble her when it all was said and done?
It's a good question. And going to the theme of collateral damage, Tasha Thornwall, who is the Bloodletter, is definitely that, right? Because she and Al Simmons, who is now Todd McFarlane's flagship character, Spawn, their conflict happened 10 years ago. Tasha was part of a CIA operation in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. CIA changed its orders. Tasha and her team did not want to pivot with those changed orders. So the man that they've been protecting for a year, who was running to be president of Haiti, they tried to extract him out. Al Simmons, who's the John Wick of the Spawn universe, came and killed her whole unit. Tasha barely got away. So basically, Al did to Tasha what, Vice President Dick Cheney did to CIA agent Valerie Plame, and he basically outed her to everyone in Haiti, the populace, the Haitian government. So Tasha had to go underground because she was afraid for her life when it came to the people of Haiti, and then she was afraid for her life because of the Central Intelligence Agency, because she went against orders. So that meant she had a bullseye on her face.
I mean, and basically, so she fell in love, more or less, and
she did fall in love with the man who was running to be president of Haiti. She did fall in love with him. And listen, that's dangerous. When you're an undercover operative for the government, that is the very last thing you should do. But that was one of Tasha's great loves. And so she's been living underground for 10 years. She comes out of the shadows because she finds out Al Simmons is alive and he's Spawn. That triggers her because this is a trauma event. What happened 10 years ago, that was a trauma event. Trauma does not go away. 10 years ago suddenly collapses into the now. And she does not believe that this world will be just if he is allowed to walk around in it. So she sets off on a mission to kill him. And so the Bloodletter story is about her quest to create the ultimate weapon that can kill Spawn. And their confrontation is a real bloody rated R fisticuffs magical mix-up. And it doesn't go the way she thinks it's going to go. And to answer your question, Spawn did not humble her. Casper humbled her at the end of the story.
Yes.
And if people want to know what that means, they have to
pick it up.
That's the person that humbled Tasha. It wasn't Spawn.
Yeah, and those last words that she gave to Tasha with regards to what her plans were, because yes, Tasha revealed herself to be the ultimate anti-hero. She would turn on anyone if it meant getting to her goal, good or bad, and that included, unfortunately, Casper as well.
Right. And Casper is basically her partner, like her sidekick. So basically the Oracle to Tasha's Black Canary, or the Q to Tasha's James Bond, or the Alfred to Tasha's Batman, since you mentioned Batman characters earlier.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I can see that because, yeah, she gave a really ominous message to her as we got to those last pages between Tasha and Casper. But also, if you are a trade paperback waiter, again, you want to make sure you go out there and get it, because if you are a fan of Spawn, again, this is the ultimate crossover, because you have the entire Scorch that shows up in this story, and Tasha takes on all of them. And we realize that it was all kind of a setup, which again was a great idea when you look at it. So as you and Tim was putting the story together, how did you two decide how you wanted to integrate the parts of the Spawn universe that made their way into the story.
It was really about what would work for Tasha's journey in a way that it affects Tasha, Tasha affects things, and it works smoothly within the Spawn universe timeline, which is basically 10 years, right? And so we really had to look through the mythology. I have all the Spawn compendiums right there. It's really research. And then we had to figure out, okay, what were the touch points on the journey? What were the thematic touch points, theme per issue, and then macro theme for the series? And listen, whatever happens, people are suffering and people are getting hurt. Her battles with the members of the Scourged ended up having a reveal about motivations at the end. But let's be clear, people got busted up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I could use other words, but just in case a kid watches this interview, they got busted up, right? Let's just be clear about this. Like, Tasha is a combatant that if you mix it up with her, assuming you survive, you don't walk away unscathed.
Oh yeah,
how it goes.
I remember growing up, the story has always been, even if I get my ass whipped, you gonna know that you have been in a battle with me by the time it's all said and done.
100%.
And that's exactly how.
Beat me, you have to earn that.
Yep, and that's exactly how those battles went.
You have to earn that.
Including the one with Jessica, she Spawn. And I truly enjoyed the way it all ended because you and Tim really set things up to where it could possibly be more that comes of this, especially if Tasha realizes what Jessica knew and what Jessica did with regards to the story itself. So please tell me that you all had that in mind and y'all went ahead and presented that to Todd, and we'll be getting news of something real soon. Because that's a team up I could really dig right there between Jessica and Tasha. She Spawn and Bloodletter. But
from your lips to God's ears, we would love for the Todd father to sign off on a Bloodletter Volume 2. Tim and I already know what the story is. And, so one thing you have to think about the Spawn universe in particular is that it's the fusion of mysticism and espionage, right? It's magic and spies, right? And so when you're talking about Bloodletter, she Spawn and Spawn. You're talking about Tasha Thornwall, ex-CIA, Jessica Priest, ex-CIA, Al Simmons, ex-CIA, right? So they live in a world of deception and lies. They know how to lie better than they know how to tell the truth to other people and to themselves, right? And so who's telling who the truth? And everyone's holding back something. And if all the apple carts get turned over, it's real bad. Because keep in mind, if you're reading the Spawn books, there's some kind of romantic energy between Jessica Priest and Spawn. If Tasha ever found out about that, that would be a problem, right? And Tasha has done things that Jessica does not know about. So everyone's keeping secrets in their bags, you know what I mean? And so part of the tension of the Spawn universe, it isn't just the battles, it's preventing all the apple carts from turning over. So we definitely had fun setting up the potential for future drama. And I would love to see Tasha and Jessica meet again because they have unresolved baggage. That fight that they had, that conversation that they had at the end, it did not heal all the wounds by any stretch of the imagination, right? The person that Tasha came to love in Haiti, Antoine, that was one of Tasha's great loves. And Jessica Priest would turn out to be another for a number of reasons. And so, Tasha's living this life, which is very solitary. Like you said, she's not immediately designated as heroic. She thinks she's the hero of the story all the time. She's not. But in her is real heroic capacity. But she's got to get past some stuff to activate that, right? And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting. We try to set up new things as we laid out the story. And one of the things that I really loved working on this with Tim and the amazing art team of Christian Rosado and DC Alonso. Christian Rosado, who's now finishing up the Sentry for Marvel Comics, although his work on Bloodletter was better. But that said, as objectively as possible, right? Like, part of it was you get these stories and the characters all stay in one place. And I love the fact that we traveled the world with these characters. So just when Tasha went after the Scorched, which is She Spawn's team, we went to Italy, we went to Brooklyn, New York, we were in the Bahamas, we were in the United Kingdom, right? And, when Jessica and Tasha are fighting on that island in the Bahamas, it's like sunny, it's sun-scorched. That's a place that usually would be a paradise, one of the 300 plus islands in the Bahamas. And Jessica Priest made so much money as an assassin that she bought a private island and she had a house on that island. And going back to that island for this battle, it's an interesting juxtaposition to have this beautiful, idyllic, tropical place be the stage for this combat, right? And just like for me, I love noir movies and things like that. And we were talking about the old days and fights, right? And one of the things that happens is when you see someone take their jacket off, you're like, oh, this is for real.
It's about to go
So
down.
like when Tasha takes off her jacket and she's just standing there and she's like, listen, I'm going to get what I want and I'm going to take out Spawn. And if I have to run through you to do it, I'm going to do it. I always just even for me as a reader, Tim and I wrote that, but every time I look through those pages, I get jazzed. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. This is part of the fun of making these stories, right? And I would hope that it would evoke those kinds of feelings, in the reader.
Were there any members of the Spawn universe or any backstory within the overall Spawn universe that you all wanted to incorporate into Bloodletter, and the editors were like, nah, not right now?
There wasn't anyone that they said no to when we were thinking about the secret history of the Spawn universe and where Tasha weaved in and out. One of the top characters on our list was a Spawn villain from way back, I think first introduced in maybe Spawn number 5. His name is Overkill. And he was a former, I think, assassin for the Italian mafia, and he's a cyborg. And Overkill was definitely someone that we wanted to have show up. But then when we were putting together the arc, it just didn't make sense for the first storyline. Fingers crossed we get to season 2, we will show Overkill and where his story intersects with Tasha's story.
All these intersections and crossovers and
Yes.
like I say, when I got to the part of the story where it's Jessica and Tasha, and I read their history, I'm like, man, this is, if the history was any different, I think Tasha might have wanted to kill Jessica, because again, Jessica was supposed to go in and finish up what Al couldn't and didn't, and that's how that's how Jessica became the second love, more or less.
Right. And keep in mind, like, Jessica's motivation for what she did to Al Simmons before he became Spawn, the real motivation becomes very clear.
Yeah.
Right? And that's important.
Yeah.
It's important for you to know that happened. And it's cool for the Spawn fans who are well familiar with the history to get that recontextualization of things.
It really brings it full circle, more or less.
Absolutely 100%. 100%. You could take Bloodletter 2 and you could go back to King Spawn 6, which I think is the latest version of the murder of Al Simmons, right? And, you know, when we were thinking about putting together this story, I feel like Tim and I were likely inspired by the Bruce Wayne arc, where Bruce Wayne, you know, when you think about Batman Year One, Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli, when you do the math, the understanding is that Bruce Wayne left Gotham when he was 18, and when he comes back to Gotham, he's 25. So he had traveled for 7 years, and he went all over the world to develop the skills to come back and be what would be named the Batman, right? So when we were thinking about Tasha's journey, I definitely feel we vibed a bit off of the 7 unknown years of Bruce Wayne, right?
That is an interesting take. It gives you something to think about, you know, when you look at it from that standpoint. And it's one of those things that, again, makes you want a season 2 now, you know, because it allows you to pick more off of what's been going on with Tasha all these years as she is setting herself up. What type of it's almost like you all could do a Chip Zdarsky like story where he's telling about the trainings of Bruce Wayne that he had when he went away for those 10 years before Year One.
Right, in that Chip Zdarsky series, Batman the Knight. Yeah.
So it just, as someone who got into Spawn, got out of Spawn, and got back into Spawn, and, you know, had to really catch up. Bloodletter was one of those stories where you really didn't have to know as much. You could miss out on some of the things and still not get lost. And I truly appreciated that, because for me, I had recently got back into Spawn by reading Rat City from Erica Schultz.
Yes.
So that got me back. That got me back into the Spawn universe. And all of a sudden now, here's Bloodletter. Okay, here's a new story. Do I need to know what's going on everywhere else? No, I don't. I'm loving this story. And so now I'm reading She Spawn now, the miniseries that's out. And
Gail Simone.
Yes, it's one of those stories where you don't really need to know. You're not going to get lost in it because you may not have read everything in Spawn for the 300 issues that's been out there, you know, since its iteration. But
that's part of the job, right? Yeah. It's like, you know, when we're writing these stories, we have to be able to invite new readers. If you have to know the inside baseball to read the book, I don't feel like the book succeeds. Especially if it's in a collected edition, if it's a book with a spine and it's a single experience. You know, as writers, as storytellers, it's our responsibility to make the stories gateways for new people to come in, right, and get their footing, much like soap operas. You know, soap operas were designed narratively and structurally that anyone's first day, they can plant their feet and then suddenly get pulled along for the ride. And then before you know it, they've been watching The Young and the Restless for 30 years, right?
Ironically.
And so that's what these comics are supposed to be.
And ironically, one of my direct reports at the office and I were talking about soap operas, and we were mentioning how growing up, my grandmother was strictly Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful, As the World Turns, God and Light. And
that was the whole, for us, it was CBS.
It was
Here
CBS.
It was Channel 2 CBS. Those were the 4 soap operas that made up the entire soap opera block, starting at 12:30 after the new news.
And we were just talking about how, even today, some of the same characters that were there 30, 40 years ago, including Victor Newman,
Victor and Nikki Newman are still there, right? And when you're talking about Bold and the Beautiful, Eric and Stephanie Forrest are still there, right? It's these characters who they seem immortal, but people have literally spent 2/3 of their lives with these characters.
Yep. If I touched that TV, I was in some deep doo-doo. But
wild.
You're absolutely right. You could miss episodes of the soaps and come back to it and just keep rocking and rolling.
Absolutely.
But again, like I said, I am absolutely overjoyed that I was able to get into Bloodletter and read it and not have to worry about what I missed. Because if it was something that was important, you mentioned it. And that's great storytelling, So, I need to go back and see what happened, but I'm gonna finish this first. Yeah. but again, the story is Bloodletter. The trade paperback is out on shelves now, not only in comic shops, but you can also get it at your local Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million. But of course, I'm gonna always lead you to a local comic shop. That's just the way I am. But Joe, you're quite busy, and last time I had you on here, we were talking about the Dakota incident, and again, I want to congratulate you guys on that story as well. That got into a second print. And yes, Theo went and brought the second print cover as well, because I can't turn away I can't turn away Dan Moore. I just can't.
Listen, that Dan Moore static cover, that was absolutely amazing. I'm doing a signing in Philadelphia. So while most people in the comic book industry are going to be at Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm going to be in Germantown in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at Multiverse Books, where I'm going to be doing a signing of the Bloodletter trade paperback and New History of the DC Universe, the Dakota Incident, the second printing. So it's gonna be these great covers all over the place and great conversations with people. And my co-writers, Stephanie Williams, Morgan Hampton, Nicholas Draper Ivy, all the artists, the letterers, the colorists, we really wanted to make a book that the story got you here, right? And it was a new entry story. If you knew the DC universe, then cool, you saw these different threads and connections. If you didn't, you could come in. If you knew the milestone characters, some new layers, some new twists. If you didn't, you could come right in. So it's not easy to pull off, but when you pull it off to make something new reader friendly, it's always a joy.
Well, again, that is also available in the second printing. So if you haven't ordered it yet, God bless you. But you need to get out there and get it, because, that was, as a longtime Milestone fan, as you can see from the various posters. And I just so you know, I just was able to find, after 2 years of searching, I was able to find the Bill Sienkiewicz poster that he did.
You're a lucky man. That's a hard one to find. Even if you scrub eBay, that's a hard poster to find.
So and that's actually where I found it. There was, and I was able to get it at a decent deal, because that was one that I've been looking for quite a while. So I was able to get that one. I'm gonna put it right there, and then I'll post a picture of it. But Joe Illidge, what else do you have going on? So you recently mentioned a story that you got planned for early 2020 or winter 2028. Tell us a little bit about I Am One of You.
Sure. So I Am One of You is a graphic novel memoir. It's the story of Jonathan Conyers. Jonathan Conyers is the co-founder of the Brooklyn Debate League. So he has dedicated his life to, among other things, teaching young people the art of debate, right? The art of debate, facts, doing your research, utilizing facts, having civil intellectual conversation, and in these conversations trying to build bridges instead of walls. So he co-founded the Brooklyn Debate League. He has a really extraordinary life and a tough childhood and tough teen years, and so he wrote a memoir called I Wasn't Supposed to Be Here. So the graphic novel I Am One of You basically shows his teenagers, like from the 6th grade to the 10th grade. So I am the writer of that based off of Jonathan's real life story. The artist is Daniel A. Stevens. Daniel has worked in comics and in advertising, you know, coming from Marvel, Activision, all these different companies. And, you know, it's 3 brothers getting together and telling the story of this Black man who is making impacts in his community. You know, they say think global, act local. If you want to try to make positive change in the world, start in your neighborhood. Start in the people of the closest proximity to you, and start with young people, because young people are going to inherit all of this, right? And I don't think they're necessarily inheriting a great bag.
Yeah, for better or worse.
But let's give them the tools to have the conversations that will lead to prosperity, right? And that involves intellect, debate, civil discourse, right? And so I Am One of You is going to be a graphic novel published by HarperCollins under their Harper Alley division, which is children's, middle grade, and young adult graphic novels. And so it's funny, the seasons for trade book publishers don't parallel the seasons on the calendar exactly. So winter 2028 is January through April of 2028.
Wow.
In trade book publishing. So it's actually going to come out between January and April of 2028. And 2020 is going to be a big year for me. I have 3 graphic novels coming out that year.
As we get closer, I will definitely have you back on to talk more about all 3 of them. But Joe, Joe, how can fans keep up with what's going on with you and what's going on at Illuminus, that company that you recently started to help creators get their IP in the market?
So you can catch me on almost all of the socials. I am on Facebook. I am on Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. I am still on X, and the only reason I'm still on X is because that's where I have found the largest community of Milestone fans. If someone can point me to a social media platform where I can find a larger coalescence of Milestone fans, I will leave X tomorrow. But until then, that's where a lot of them seem to congregate. And so I'm on all those platforms, and on my TikTok channel is where I originate the videos. I've done over 160-second videos talking about developing your own intellectual properties in the form of comic books and graphic novels, drawing on my experience of over 30 years working in comics, working at Milestone on Static, working at DC on Batman, working at Heavy Metal Magazine, you know, really sharing some tidbits of knowledge. And my company, Illuminus, works for creators, clients, entrepreneurs who want to introduce their original ideas in the form of comics and graphic novels, because right now, the world is constantly telling us that this is the time for creative people to bet on themselves. Okay? Every time you look, companies that control massive, globally known intellectual properties are laying off a lot of people who have helped nurture those intellectual properties. And I'm constantly saying, what would happen if the former biz dev team of Marvel Studios started their own company? What would happen if all the people who were laid off from Cliffhanger Games and were working on the Black Panther game started their own company, right? The future is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
This is no longer in question. This is the way it is. And so with entrepreneurship, it starts with ideas, idea development, idea realization, and comic books and graphic novels are the fastest way to get an idea to market, but you want them to be good. You want them to be stellar. You want them to be of quality. You want them to have characters and stories that will compel people to get on the ride and go on the ride.
Joe Illidge, man, we're not even gonna do rapid fire because every time you get on here and we do rapid fire, you just knock it out. But I want to thank you. I will be seeing you, my friend, in San Diego next month.
Awesome.
Since you're not coming to Heroes Con, you're gonna miss out on my panel. But
sorry about that. I apologize. Congratulations on the upcoming panel. Sorry, I'm going to miss it.
Man, I'm excited about it. But yeah, you have fun in Germantown. I've been there many times, but I have never been to Usually when I go to a new city, I will always make it a point to try to visit at least one LCS. And I did not on that particular trip, again, for a work conference, and I just didn't have time. But
next time, make the time. Multiverse Books is a great store.
Oh yeah, Multiverse. I mean, because they do Ouch Cat, but they do. I believe they do a great Marvel podcast that they've done.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so if it's the same Multiverse comics that I'm thinking about, but I'm gonna have to make my way out there. But you have fun out there in Germantown. I'll have my fun in Charlotte, but we will meet up definitely in San Diego in about a month. Or a little over a month.
That's right.
But Joe Illidge,
that's right. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good to see you. Make sure to pack your sunscreen. Because those UV levels in San Diego are no.
So I was actually in San Diego at the latter part of April for a conference, and ironically, they had me in the Marriott next door to the convention center, and I'm like, well, look, can I I'll work in the kitchen if you all can just put me up in a room for the next couple of months, because where I'm currently slated to stay at in July is a little bit out of the way. But if I can stay here, I'll work. I'll wash dishes. I
can tell you that my hotel is half a mile from the convention center, and you know what? I'm good with that because that means I can go have breakfast and I may not run into anybody from the industry. And, San Diego is just so intense and you're seeing so many people that it's like, it could be cool to just be able to have a meal and not run into anybody. So I learned to take things as windfalls. I am thankful to God that I'm going to have the opportunity to go. And if that's my biggest problem, it's a first world problem. So we'll be okay. We'll make it.
Well, I will definitely see you in San Diego. Joe Illidge, as always, thank you so much for bringing your wealth of knowledge here to the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast.
Theo, thanks for having me. Always good talking with you, and see you in a month and a half.
All right. So again, I want to thank Joe Illidge for joining me on today's podcast. It is always a great time when he's on, even before recording. He's just a wealth of knowledge, and I love picking his brain about his career in the comic book industry, projects that he's working on, and projects to come even after that. He's a busy man. It's always a good time when I'm finally able to get him on. But again, Bloodletter, the trade paperback, is out on shelves everywhere. If you are a trade waiver, you no longer have to wait. You can find it at your local comic shop, as well as traditional bookstores such as Barnes & Nobles and Books A Million. And I'll have links in the show notes for that. Also, again, Noir's New Black was funded. I'm happy that we were able to get that third and final issue of season 2 brought to life. I can't wait to get my copy in my hands. It's always good to help out those folks at Fair Square Graphics. If you want to know more about that, I have links to Fair Square in the show notes as well. You can go out to their website and pick up some of the stuff that they have for sale. You may even be able to find some of the past issues of Noir's New Black, especially in digital form. I know there were low copies the last time I checked with Fabrice. But yeah, and of course, congratulations to Fabrice and the team at Noir's The New Black for their nomination for Best Anthology Series with the Eisners. As you can tell, I have my Comic-Con shirt on. I'll be heading to San Diego in a couple of weeks, and I'm excited to attend the Eisners to see if they're able to pull it out with getting the award for Best Anthology, as well as my girl Stephanie Williams getting Best Writer. So those are my two. Fingers crossed, they deserve it. And then again, Joe has some other projects that he has coming out. We talked a little bit about it, going all the way into 2027 and 2028. So, he's a busy person, so I wish him the best on that. I can't wait to see what else he has coming out for us to take part of. But before closing out, I will, of course, talk about my top 5 for this past week. Even though there were some... it was a light load with books this week. I was able to pick out 5, and one was actually a surprise. It was something that I was not expecting to enjoy as much as I did. But with that being said, let's go on and get into my top 5. Alrighty, so here we go. In the number 5 spot, Daredevil number 4, written by Stephanie Phillips with art from Lee Garbett over at Marvel Comics. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this series as much as I am. This new Matt that we're getting, and this battle he's having with Omen, which really came to a head this issue, if not for the interference and saving from Owl, who saved Matt from getting killed by Omen. But yeah, it is a really interesting story. We have a lot of going on, not just with Matt and Omen, but with the story going on at Empire, where Matt is teaching law. So we have all of that going on with Holland Vale and him trying to infiltrate and find his detractors there. But yeah, it's a really good story. And we see, Dominic, really trying to exert himself as a detective, only to kind of be shot down by his former partner, who's still an officer, and Officer Callahan, who, is trying to bring him back to Earth, in my opinion. But we see, as Callahan tries to, make up for being harsh to Dominic, it ends up costing his life at the hands of Omen. But yeah, Dominic's a coward, from what I can see right now, again, and to kind of go along with that was that one line from Callahan that was basically saying the only reason why you're a detective now is because there's nobody left to take the job. So yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen to Dominic, because he's still in that warehouse with Omen, panicking over the fact that Callahan is dead and Omen is still there. So we don't know what will happen next. But we're going to see what happened with Matt, because we saw that he had a lot of thoughts going through his head, thoughts to him growing up and learning to lose his powers with Stick. But yeah, I've really been enjoying this. I hope Jennifer Walters, please forgive me, Jen, up there. Yeah. but I'm kind of enjoying Daredevil more than I enjoyed Planet She-Hulk, and that says a lot as a She-Hulk fan. So I am really appreciative to what this new voice that Stephanie Phillips is giving to Matt. Now, with regards to the art, I've been a fan of Lee Garbert ever since his days on Skywood with that story over at Image. And yeah, I've always been a fan. Matter of fact, I've been a fan since his time on Batgirl as well. But yeah, I'm kind of enjoying this story right now. So we will see what happens next, and what happens with Matt and Omen. Matt owes Owl a favor now, seeing that he saved his life. So we'll see how it all plays out in future issues. But that is my number 5 book, Daredevil number 4 from Stephanie Phillips and Lee Garbert over at Marvel Comics. All right. In the number 4 spot, Supergirl number 15, written and drawn by Sophie Campbell, colors by Tamara Bonvillain over at DC Comics. So seriously, legit, this has been one of those underrated titles that I have just been enjoying from day one since Sophie Campbell's been on the title. It has just been a great story with Kara and Leslie. Leslie is just like a secret crush for me. I kind of love her. But yeah, this is kind of the finale, at least from Kara's standpoint, with the Superboy's event that's going on in the Superman titles. And I really enjoyed how this all ended with regards to Kara getting a new costume. I don't know how much longer that will last, considering what I've read in some of the upcoming issues of Superman that will be coming out in a few weeks. But yeah, I really have been enjoying Sophie's take on Kara and this journey she has kind of been on, going back and forth between Midvale and Kandor. If there is one downside that I am not happy about, is the fact that Leslie is staying in Kandor while the rest of the team, including Connell and Thunder Girl, are heading back to Midvale, and they're going to have their little team with Lena Luthor. So I don't know how all that's going to play out, but yeah, I really have enjoyed Sophie's take and the voice she gave to Leslie Law, and we'll see. Hopefully we get more of her in this new role as the Luminary of Kandor, and she takes that role responsibly. Yeah, this has just been a really great adventure with Kara. It's been fun. It's been adventurous. There were a few issues that I were not crazy about. I was not crazy about Cyborg Supergirl, but I understand how it fits into the story that Sophie's telling. But yeah, this has just been one of those underrated titles you don't hear much about unless you are just a fan of Supergirl. And I wasn't sure how I would like the story when I first picked it up with issue 1, once Sophie came on as the artist and writer. But yeah, I've really been enjoying this, and I can't wait to see what's next. And I can't wait to see Kara's new role. She's really going to take a bigger role in the House of L, and I'm excited to see how that all plays out, especially knowing that Clark is returning in issue 1100 of Action Comics. But yeah, I'm excited to see what's in store for Kara's future as we get get this story moving forward as we move into Kingdom of Zod and Kara's role in that as that event crosses over into the Superman titles, including Supergirl. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, I've been enjoying it. I hope to continue enjoying it. Again, it's one of those underrated titles that I think needs more attention. But I've been enjoying it. I hope if you aren't reading it, you decide to pick it up one day and give it a chance. I think you will enjoy it as well, especially if you're a fan of Superman. I think it's all going to fit into that universe really well with regards to the stories that's been coming out from Sophie Campbell and what we're going to be seeing as we move into Kingdom of Zod. And so let me also just say I have been a fan of Tamra Bonvillain since Once and Future over at Boom Studios. I absolutely love that story, and I love the way Tamra Bonvillain does her colors. It's just chef's kiss. The one thing that I'm not certain about is the outfit that Kara will be wearing moving forward. So as this issue came to an end, we see she pretty much had her costume, her outfit, similar to what Clark's looked like, in taking on this role as the leader of the House of El. And you'll see as we get into the other Superman titles, whether it's Unlimited or the main super title, that she kind of goes back to her traditional one. So I don't know if that was just a little off going back and forth or if there's a reason behind it. I'm okay with the new outfit as the issue comes to an end, but I just don't know, if it's permanent. And if it's permanent, I'm okay with it. I actually like the idea of that outfit representing the fact that she's going to take a more prominent role with the super family, the House of El, than before. So we shall see as we proceed further into Kara's story. But again, yeah, very underrated. I absolutely love it. I hope to have Sophie Campbell on the show one day. I've reached out to her in the past, and hopefully we can connect and Sophie can come on the show. But that is my number 4 book, Supergirl, number 15, written and drawn by Sophie Campbell with art from Tamra Bonvillain over at DC Comics. Okay, in the number 3 spot, and this was a surprise for me. I didn't know that I was going to enjoy this as much as I did. But in the number 3 spot, Dispatch number 1, written by B. Clay Moore, with art from Daniel Gett over at Ignition Press. Now, when the solicit says that this is MacGyver meets Die Hard, this is really MacGyver meets Die Hard. And I really had fun reading this story. It focuses on a delivery driver who is ex-military, and he seems to be special forces. But as he is dealing with his drama, you see he is dealing with life as you will notice some vets do. He's a member of a support group, talking about his issues and his life. But on this particular day at his job, again, he's a delivery driver. He gets dispatched to this office building that is at the same time about to be taken hostage and robbed. And so he goes into full, again, MacGyver, John McClane mode, and using anything and everything to go after and take out these hostage takers who have already shot one innocent person already in this first issue. And yeah, this was an enjoyable book, and I was not expecting it. I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, but I did. And the art was really well done. I like the style from Daniel Gete, and I will read, or I will enjoy almost anything with colors from Lee Lurich. He just has a great style with the colors that he lays on any page that he colors for. But yeah, this was a pretty fun story. Again, if that is your gist, if you are into action hero type stories where the good guy take out the bad guy and or bad guys, you should go ahead and pick up Dispatch. It was a really enjoyable story. I look forward to reading the other issues as they are released from Ignition Press. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that is, again, quick review of my number 3 book for this week, Dispatch #1, from writer B.K. Moore, with art from Daniel Gete over at Ignition Press. Okay, so in the number 2 spot, Green Lantern Corps number 18, written by Morgan Hampton with art from a slew of artists. There's at least 3 or 4 folks on this title, on this issue this month, including the likes of Will Conrad and Fernando Passarin, whose cover for the issue is absolute love it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I say this as no dig to Jeremy Adams, but Green Lantern Corps has gotten better since Morgan Hampton has taken on the writing duties on his own. Remember when the series came back, Morgan was sharing those duties with Jeremy Adams before taking it over on his own. And man, what Morgan has been doing since having this series all on his own has just been great. I absolutely loved it. And I remember mentioning when we were talking on the Dakota incident, mentioning before we closed out how much I was loving what he was doing on Green Lantern Corps. And I mean, we have seen Green Lantern series before, and we have seen Green Lantern Corps series that kind of, really focused on the Green Lantern Corps as they may have battled, they may have battled the Fleas, or they may have battled the Yellow Lantern Corps or the Red Lantern Corps. But what we see in this current run, and it's just been marvelous how Morgan has been able to juggle a series where it's not just 1 or 2 Lantern Corps that are involved. It's the entirety of the emotional spectrum that is in this book and in each issue. And it's just great to see how he's able to balance it out so that each issue you can focus on an individual corps and not feel lost going from issue to issue. And what has really gotten me just even more in love with this series is how things have been since DCKO, and since then Guy has come back with the power of the All Sight. He's able to see all of the entities of the emotional spectrum, and I just love this new take and this new voice that Guy has. He's still, from time to time, he's the snarky dick that we've always known Guy Gardner to be. The guy who at one point in time was a warrior. But in this current arc, since becoming the All Sight, Guy has had this, I don't want to necessarily say this maturity amongst him, but for him to be the voice of reason amongst the core, and this is the core that consists of Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, but for Guy Gardner to be the voice of reason and to push back on the core leader in what he feels his duty is as the All-Sight is just a little something different I've seen from him in the past. And I'm absolutely loving this new take with Guy. And you all know Guy Gardner is my favorite Green Lantern. But yeah, in this current arc, so I am seeing just a lot of focus on my favorite Green Lanterns, with Jessica and Joe also being a lot of focus. I love the connection that those two have. Jessica being the core leader, and Joe is kind of the unnamed, unofficial second in command. I mean, you kind of see that in this issue where while Guy and Jessica are in this trance as they go to the emotional expanse, you see Joe take command, and she's not doing it from the standpoint of, hey, I'm the boss now, but she's still doing it, acknowledging that Jessica Cruz is the core leader. But that dynamic between Jess and Joe has been building, and I'm loving it because, again, those are my three favorite Green Lanterns, and seeing that connection with those two and seeing this focus on Guy, being more than what we've known him to be all this time, it's just been great, and I've really been loving the stories that Morgan Hampton has been telling. Again, not just with these three, but with the core as a whole. And again, this is a core that has Jon Stewart back, and yet, despite that, he is not the focus of the Green Lantern Corps. We are getting different stories that are looking at different members of the Corps and different members of different spectrums of the Lantern Corps. So we're getting a lot, and Morgan Hampton has been doing just a marvelous job in balancing all of that out. Now, again, we had a slew of artists on this issue, and I can kind of see why it was needed, especially as we have several different things going on. We have the Manhunters making their attack on Orr, and we get a particular artist on that. We have Guy and Jess, as Guy has kind of transported their subconscious into the emotional expanse, so that Jess can communicate and see what is going on with the emotional entities. So there's a lot going on from an artistic standpoint, but it really flows well, and I really do love it. And so, as I mentioned in the beginning, talking about the cover from Fernando Passarin, it's just beautiful with the colors on top of it and everything that just shows all of the members of the different corps preparing to go into battle, and just that sight of them just preparing to jump in. And again, this is without Guy and Jessica on there. You have Joe leading the charge, but the cover itself is just beautiful. I absolutely love it. But yeah, I have been enjoying the Green Lantern Corps for a while, and it's been a while since they've been in my top 5. They may have been honorable mentions, and they may have been in top 10 when I was doing my top 10 books. But yeah, this week it was really good, and it did enough to not only get into the top 5, but to be near the top in the number 2 spot. So I really enjoy it. But yeah, that's my number 2 book for this week. Green Lantern Corps number 18 from writer Morgan Hampton, and a slew of artists, including Will Conrad, Fernando Pasarin, Guerra, and others over at DC Comics. And so we have reached the end of the countdown. We've reached my number one book and my number one title for this week, Absolute Batman number 22 from writer Scott Snyder with art from Weatherdale Edera over at DC Comics. So let's get the obvious quick stuff out of the way. Even in the Absolute universe, Jason Todd is still an ass, and if there was a vote to say whether or not he dies, it gets my vote. Thank you, Red Hood fans. But yeah, man, this issue was crazy. The solicits had it as as a telling of the origin of Harley Quinn, and it was just that. And in the end, you see she has a direct tie to Arkham, not only through her mother, but with the ultimate just mind blow page is the reveal that Jack Grimm, aka Joker, is her pops. So that was just crazy when I get to that panel. But there's just a whole bunch more that's going on as well. Because while Harley is trying to, reveal her story to Bruce is really trying to do his own thing. And, he's trying to avoid the Robins, and, they in turn are trying to get Jason to just come on back to HQ, because one, they've been out all day and their power is running low. So they're just trying to recharge, and Jason is just being an ass about it. But, it's the Harley's story is really the brunt of this issue, and the way Scott Snyder tells it is just perfectly done. And considering who this Harley Quinn is, it really fits now to everything that we know about her. And everything we know about who Harley is as a character, why Harley acts the way she does. And it's just, it all fits now. Even more so, knowing that Jack Grimm is her dad. Again, that was something that she didn't always know. She learned it, after figuring out her mom's place in Arkham, which is crazy in itself. Her mom looks more like the Harley Quinn that we know than Harley Quinn does. But also in this issue, which again, I'm going to say it's mind-blowing, but it may not be considering, who's doing it, is the fact that Bruce has dug up the grave of his father, and he's found out that Thomas ain't there. The coffin is empty. There's nobody in it. And not only that, but he eventually gets a phone call from the Scarecrow, who, other than Joker himself, is probably the scariest villain. At least in Gotham, in this universe, and possibly in all of Absolute. But he reveals to Bruce that Thomas isn't dead. I have him, and we see a emaciated, naked Thomas Wayne, maybe not. Chained up and basically begging Scarecrow to not let Bruce see him, and it just leaves Bruce feeling some type of way. Of course, you can't blame him for that. But yeah, I was really reading, getting ready for the lead up into the reveal of Babs as the Bat, and her new role. But yeah, getting this story and getting to the end of it just really blew my mind. And it's not the first time that Scott Snyder has done that with this story. I mean, considering how he killed James Gordon, that should say a lot. Now whether or not this is really Thomas Wayne that he has chained up, that is yet to be seen. But hey, considering Jim Gordon is really dead, maybe it is. I mean, we know from what Jack has revealed to Bruce is that everything that has happened to him from the moment of his father's death, and even before that, was pre-planned, and it was all destined to happen by things put into place, including his place as Batman. So who knows? Maybe it is Thomas, who's still alive. And yeah, all this time, Bruce has been thinking that he's been dead, killed to protect him. But yeah, so it was really crazy. The art was really good. I thought that it was going to be another issue drawn by Nick Dragotta, who did the cover, but not. I've always been a fan of Weatherdale Edera, but yeah, it was just wild and crazy. Yeah. Origin is one thing, but Origin and these reveals were just crazy. So yeah, and I think this is the first time that Absolute Batman has been my book of the week, and that's not to say that it hasn't been good. It's always been really good, but again, that's really a story that we cover over on the Batman universe. So I don't mention as many TBU titles here on the Comic Bin to kind of keep things in perspective. But man, this was just yeah. So kudos to Scott Snyder and Del Edera on what they did with this particular issue here. I was thoroughly pleased with how good it was as we continued this arc with Scarecrow, the Straw Man, and yeah, I can't wait to see what comes next. I mean, we know in a few issues we're gonna get Babs coming in as the Bat, but what else can Scott Snyder do, to blow our minds before then? So yeah, we will see. But yeah, that's my number one book. Totally deserved. It was not expecting all that I read in this issue. So yeah, kudos to everyone. But that's my number one book for the week. Absolute Batman number 22 from writer Scott Snyder with guest artist Weatherdale Edera over at DC Comics. And so, there you have it. My top 5 books for this past week. Daredevil number 4, Supergirl number 15, Dispatch number 1, Green Lantern Corps number 18, and my number 1 book for this week, Absolute Batman number 22. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, yeah, really good week for DC Comics with their releases. So that does it for this episode of the Comic Bin Comic Book Podcast. As always, I thank you all for joining in. Next time, as you can tell, I am getting myself into Comic-Con mode and Comic-Con Palooza. First up, I'll be heading home home to New Orleans, and GalaxyCon New Orleans 2026 is their second year in the Crescent City, and I'll be covering the event for the entire weekend. I'll be heading down on Friday and taking things in. Hopefully I have a few interviews lined up. I don't want to reveal who, just in case I'm disappointed. But yeah, I'm hoping they all come to fruition and have some good stuff for you over the weekend as I do my recaps of the event. Again, it's the second year. I do know that they are in a bigger hall this year. In fact, they'll be taking up 2 spaces this year. In their first year, last year, they were in Hall D of the Montreal Convention Center, and this year they will be in Halls I and J. Again, bigger area. Only problem with it is at the far end of the convention center, and unfortunately, I'll be staying at the completely opposite end of the convention center. And so New Orleans has one of the largest convention centers in the country. So yeah, that is quite a walk to get from one end to the other. But I will be there and I'll be covering the event. So be on the lookout for those updates. If you are in New Orleans and you have not got your tickets to GalaxyCon, please check it out. It is an entirely different atmosphere than Fan Expo, and I'm not saying that as a knock or a prop up. It's something different. They have a little different focus with what they do, and it's a little bit for everyone. They have a great list of comic creators who will be in town this weekend, including Mark Waid. I was really pleasantly shocked when his name popped up on the list of guests coming in for GalaxyCon. So yeah, I will be there. I'll be covering it. So be on the lookout for those updates as I do them on a daily basis. But after that, yeah, I will be prepping for San Diego as well. I'll be in attendance at San Diego Comic-Con. Hopefully have a good bit of interviews set up there as well, but I'll be covering that event out there at the San Diego Convention Center at the end of July. But yeah, it's going to be a busy month as we get into the brunt of comic convention season, as we go into from one of the big ones being San Diego to the other being New York Comic-Con. I am still hoping to be able to go this year for New York. I really like that show. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Comic Pen Comic Book Podcast. I thank you all for tuning in. I will be seeing you all next time, which will be in a few days as I give my recap for GalaxyCon New Orleans Day 1. But until then, as always, again, thank you all for your support. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can get updates and get notifications for when a new episode is out. I hope to have things more regular again, considering what's going on with Thanos and his condition. But all being said, I am hoping to get back on track with everything. But as always, until next time, I thank you all for your support and keep reading those comics. I'll see you all next time. That is going to do it for this episode of the Comic Ben Comic Book Podcast. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support of the program. The Comic Ben Podcast, as well as the Comic Book Spot, are a part of the Comic Book Source family of sites and media. You can follow the podcast on Twitter X at comic_Ben, or my personal account at BatmanFan_4Life. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. We're all over social media. You can also follow our sister site over at thebatmanuniverse.net for all of your news and reviews in the world of Batman. Tune in next time as we give you more in the world of comic books. Again, we truly appreciate your support. But until we meet again next time, keep reading those comics.